Department mock examination is an examination that concerns all the pupils and students of the department. In the same vein, children leave their school framework and write the exams with other students, and the supervision is done by other teachers. So they have the feeling that it is a real examination, and it is very important because it allows them overcome the stress. It is like they have already written the examination trial once, they've done it twice, so it is not at the examination center they would be stressed or be afraid. These are the advantages of having the mock examination. Heads of schools take the opportunity to appeal to the candidates and parents of students. My advice to the students is from the results, they can already see what they still need to do. When there is work to do, nothing is done. They need to work hard and take advantage of the mock examination.
Après ces examens blancs que nous sommes en train de faire aux enfants maintenant.
Advice is that after this mock examination, it is important that parents get the results and know through the examination results the various levels of their children and follow up on them in order to ensure the various steps taken to make sure that children come out in flying colors before the BEPC examination.
Et les parents surtout doivent jouer leur partition. Parce que sans eux, rien ne pourra aller. Nous connaissons l'âge de nos enfants.
Parents need to play their roles because without them, nothing can be done. We know the ages of our children. Many are still young and they do not know the real impact of what their parents are doing by enrolling them in school. Inadvertently, the parent should help us. The student should also revise their notes and practice their exercises until the examination day. It is not time for them to play. The mock examination taking place is setting the tone for the real examination, most of which will be held in June. It is in the interest of both candidates and parents to play their role in achieving satisfactory results at the end of the academic year. Linear trade in Cotonou is becoming a problem for young people who aspire to make easy money. Now faced with a multitude of activities in trade, sewing appears to be an avenue and a way out for certain societal pressures the youth face. More information in the following reports.
Fashion designing remains an exciting profession for all those who practice it and for young people who are persistent in their training. Enrolling one's child in vocational training is a guarantee of success. Parents must have authority over their children, and it is very important they go to the training centers for follow-up. Ozan Lucris Agbedo is a fashion designer in Cotonou. According to her, at the end of 3 years, every serious learner must fully master the aspect of fashion designing in order to meet the needs of the market. Richard, who is also a fashion designer, is very passionate about sewing. He says that he has no one but his mannequin to help him perfect his cuts. It is a very necessary tool, he says. Many customers are still disappointed with the performance of some pattern makers. However, some fashion designers are very particular about the quality of clothes they sew. Like sewing, other occupations are becoming popular and provide reassurance of a better future for young learners.
The 10th edition of the BDAF Benin International Dance Festival is set to be a grand affair in Cotonou with the participation of more than 20 countries. Now, the organizing committee announced 7 days of festival with activities to promote Benin as a destination. Now, during a press conference held in Cotonou on Friday, the veil was lifted on the objectives and the aims of the program of the festival. More information in the following extract.
Le BITAF, comme son nom l'indique, est un événement international de grande ampleur, essentiellement destiné à vendre la destination Bénin. L'objectif est de soutenir
BDAF is an international event of great value, and it is essentially channeled towards promoting Benin as a desired destination. Our objective is to support through dance, notably through salsa, the praiseworthy efforts that has been put in place by the head of state, His Excellency President Patrice Talon, and his government with the view of drastically raising tourist traffic of our country, Benin Republic. The 10th edition that would take place from the 1st of the 7th of May 2023 in Cotonou, the participation of at least displaced 20 countries like Canada, Haiti, Cameroon, Belgium, France, Senegal, Gabon, Niger, South Africa, Germany, Nigeria, Ghana, Togo, Czech Republic, Mali, Burkina Faso, and of course our dear country Benin Republic. This connotes that during these 7 days, Cotonou would be a real hub of tourist and cultural attraction, and also an intersection of exchange and economic opportunities, to say the least. Ladies and gentlemen, the 10th edition of Benin International Dance Festival displays a rich program full of varieties, and the planned activities include the introductory workshop of the traditional Benin dance, followed by a preparatory workshop of local dance. There would also be Afro-Latino dance, an evening event, and also an evening event for artists to perform, just to say the least.
Mais nous allons revenir pour faire un atelier de préparation et de dégustation de mets locaux. C'est-à-dire que pendant ce festival, nous allons montrer à nos invités qu'est-ce que nous mangeons de bon et de bon au Bénin. Nous allons ensemble préparer des mets. Nous allons tout faire autour du thème du manière.
On the 3rd of May 2023, we would return to do a preparatory workshop and a sampling of menoko. This connotes that during this festival, we would show our guests our beautiful meals in Benin. We would prepare the meals together. The theme is cassava, so everything will be prepared from cassava. When you take cassava in Benin, what are the products you can get from cassava? We would prepare gari. We would eat gari with our guests. We would eat tapioca. We would prepare dakwa together with our guests. We'll show them that there are lots of foods and products produced from cassava. It is also an opportunity to advertise the products produced in our country, Benin Republic, because after sharing with our guests, for example, those that like the taste of the gari would live with it and can even order when they return to their country. So it is also an economic opportunity. BDOF presents, apart from salsa that we love, traditional Benin dance is also at the heart of the activities to be displayed during this dance festival. Away from that, crossing over to South Africa, the South African state-owned electricity company Eskom is costing an average of $55 million a month in corruption, with the company burdened with debt and unable to produce enough power for the country's energy crisis. More information in the following report.
The South African state-owned electricity company Eskom is costing an average of $55 million a month in corruption, with the company burdened with debt and unable to produce enough power for the country's energy crisis, the company's former chief executive said on Wednesday. In a remote interview with the Parliamentary Committee on Public Accounts, Andre de Ruyter confirmed his statement on the level of corruption at Eskom and a document he submitted.
That would suggest that corruption does have an impact on load shedding, and that particularly corruption in the coal supply chain played a contributing role to the collapse of the duct at Kusile and the loss of the 2,000 odd megawatts as a result of those 3 units being rendered inoperable.
For months, South Africa's 60 million people have been without power for up to 12 hours a day. The continent's leading industrial power is unable to draw enough electricity from Eskom's antiquated and poorly maintained power stations, and the situation could worsen with the onset of the southern winter and an increase in demand. The power crisis is costing the economy some $50 million a day in lost generation, according to the government.
We know that the name that's been thrown out there by various people as a possibility of being this person is the previous deputy president. And so one would then have someone who has a lot of influence about able possibly to delay even the development of a coal mine.
After years of mismanagement and corruption under President Jacob Zuma, Eskom now has a debt of 42 million rand, currently the equivalent of nearly $23 billion, which the government is trying to pay off. South Africa still gets 80% of its electricity from coal. A $98 billion investment plan was approved by rich countries last year at COP27 as part of an agreement for a just transition to clean energy. Inducted as CEO of Eskom in 2020, André de Ruyter was abruptly ousted in February 2023. Hours before his departure, he accused senior government officials, including a minister he refused to name, of being involved in the looting of Eskom's coffers in an interview. He expressed doubts about the government's commitment to fighting endemic corruption.
Crossing over to Kenya, the death toll at a ranch in coastal Kenya that is owned by a pastor who is accused of leading a religious cult and ordering his followers to starve themselves to death reached 90 on Tuesday as the country's interior minister announced an expanded operation at the site. Now, the new figures came after police exhumed 17 more bodies. The total number of those rescued while starving at the ranch now stands at 34 as at Wednesday. The death toll at a ranch in coastal Kenya that is owned by a pastor who is accused of leading a religious cult and ordering his followers to starve themselves reached 90 on Tuesday as Kenya's interior minister announced an expanded operation at the site. The new figure came after police exhumed 17 more bodies. The total number of those rescued while starving at the ranch now stands at 34. The Kenyan Red Cross Society's latest figure on the number of missing is 213. Pastor Paul Mackenzie, who heads the Good News International Church, is accused of luring his followers to the ranch near the town of Malindi. He allegedly told them to fast to death in order to meet Jesus before burying them in shallow graves spread across his land. He was arrested after police raided the property earlier this month, and he remains in police custody. The Interior Minister said that a security team will upscale search and rescue missions to save as many lives as possible. The minister said there would be a turning point in how the country handles threats caused by religious extremism and was looking into another suspected cult in the same Kilifi County. The teams digging at the site have been fighting decomposed bodies buried in mass and single graves marked with a cross. Those believed to be living in mud-walled houses inside the ranch have been fleeing from rescue teams, and mostly those who can't walk or talk have been rescued so far. The Mombasa-based Muslims for Human Rights group called on the government to consider the option of using aerial surveillance by the use of helicopters to rescue more people and make the process quicker. The autopsies on the bodies are set to begin on Thursday, with local media reporting that government morgues in Kilifi are filled to capacity. This event is one of Kenya's worst recorded cult deaths.
The people there were being starved after being radicalized by a certain member of a church who told them that their work in this world is done and that they are waiting for, they should die and go and see their creator.
Terrorists use religion to advance their heinous acts. People like Mr. Mackenzie are using religion to do exactly the same thing.
We can't have people who just wake up one day in the name of a calling to, drive people on a suicide path. Every church, every mosque, every temple and synagogue must belong.
All the people who have been coming here, I can see none of us have seen our relative, but we are just rescuing more people and seeing more graves.
The broadcast regulator, Kenyan Film and Classification Board, sounded the alarm in 2017 on radicalization-like content by Mackenzie on television. The board's former chairperson, Ezekiel, told local media that the content was taken off air at the time and the law enforcement agencies were notified. The pastor in question had been arrested twice before, in 2019 and in March 2023, in relation to the death of children. Each time he was released on bond, and both cases are still proceeding through the court system. The Interior Minister likened the court deaths to one run by U.S. preacher Jim Jones, whose 900 followers took poison in a mass suicide in 1978. Other cult activities that ended up in mass deaths include Uganda's Kanuga cult massacre, which killed 700 followers in year 2000. Morocco has recorded a record number of arrivals in the first quarter of 2023, with the latest figures from the tourism ministry showing it attracted 2.9 million tourists in the 3-month period. More information in the following report.
Morocco has recorded a record number of arrivals in the first quarter of 2023, with the latest figures from the tourism ministry showing it attracted 2.9 million tourists in the 3-month period. The figures represent an increase of 17% compared to the first quarter of pre-COVID 2019. Almost 2 million people visited Morocco in February alone, a whopping 464% rise over the same period in 2022. Data compiled by the Ministry of Tourism, Handicraft and Social and Solidarity Economy attributes the upward trend to the growth in outbound tourism markets, including in Spain, Britain, Italy, and the United States. The ministry has plans to boost tourism with a new roadmap launched on 17 March, which it hopes will attract 17.5 million tourists and create 200,000 new jobs by 2026. Building on various initiatives it has carried out with the National Tourism Office, ONMT, to boost tourism, the ministry has vowed to redouble efforts towards improving marketing and reinforcing air connectivity throughout 2023. ONMT seeks to position Morocco among the world's top 10 destinations through its newly developed 2023 to 2026 action plan called Light in Action.
A United States brokered ceasefire between Sudan's warring generals entered its second day on Wednesday, but remained fragile after witnesses reported fresh airstrikes and paramilitary claimed to have seized a major oil refinery and power plant. A United States brokered ceasefire between Sudan's warring generals entered its second day on Wednesday, but remained fragile after witnesses reported fresh airstrikes and paramilitary claimed to have seized a major oil refinery and power plant. The pause was not fully upheld with attacks on headquarters, attempts to gain grounds, airstrikes and explosions in different areas of the capital. United Nations Special Representative Volker Perthes told the Security Council on Tuesday. Perthes said he maintained contact with both generals, Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his deputy-turned-rival Mohamed Hamdan Daglo, who commands the heavy and paramilitary rapid support forces. There is yet no unequivocal sign that either is ready to seriously negotiate, Perthes stated. Security fears were compounded when the World Health Organization warned on Tuesday of a huge biological risk after fighters occupied a Khartoum laboratory holding samples of cholera, measles, polio, and other infectious diseases. The fighting has killed hundreds of and left some neighborhoods of Greater Khartoum in ruins, prompting thousands of foreigners and Sudanese to flee. As combat eased in the city of 5 million, foreign governments have been organizing road convoys, aircraft and ships to get thousands of their nationals out of Sudan. A boat carrying nearly 1,700 civilians from more than 50 countries arrived in Saudi Arabia early on Wednesday. It added that it has evacuated 2,148 people, including more than 2,000 foreigners. Other evacuation efforts continued with a British military transport plane landing in Cyprus. Bewildered civilians were seen walking down one street in Khartoum's north, where almost all the buildings were blasted out and smoke rose from scorched ruins in unverified videos posted on social media. Witnesses in the same area later reported airstrikes and paramilitary forces firing anti-aircraft weapons. Later on Tuesday, witnesses reported more airstrikes in Khartoum's north, where they said fighter jets struck RSF vehicles. The RSF posted a video in which it claimed to be in control of an oil refinery and the associated Gari power plant more than 70 kilometers north of Khartoum. shortly before the army had warned in a Facebook post of heavy movement towards the refinery in order to take advantage of the truce by taking control of the refinery. The two sides have both made unverifiable claims to control key sites, adding to what experts call an overwhelming state of fear in the capital. According to lawyers, at least one jailbreak took place earlier this week, with reports of another at Koba prison, where former dictator Omar al-Bashir, who is wanted by International Criminal Court for war crimes against humanity and genocide, was being held. Good afternoon, you're still tuned in to the 1 p.m. news edition with Hazel Ogoigbe, and this is the African Newspaper Review. Now today we're starting on the front page of The Nation, Nigeria, and this story reads, Tinubu and APC target contentious Senate President and Speaker on the pages of The Nation, Nigeria. Now, of course, still on The Nation, Nigeria, let's see what's happening in Lagos. And it says, Lagos government and Owando partners in electric bus delivery. This story says headers influx into Ondo Forest worries and Moteku, and Lagos begins demolition of buildings on Banana Island. Now, still, of course, on the pages of The Nation Nigeria, it says Nigerian Air Force will fly before May 29. Minister insists, talking about the fact that for a while now, the Nigerian Air Force has not been very active. And of course, if you know you're curious about the stories trending on the pages of The Nation Nigeria, you could check online to get more information. Now, crossing away from The Nation Nigeria, moving over to the front page of The Guardian Post Cameroon, touching the stories that are trending on The Guardian Post Cameroon. Now, on The Guardian Post Cameroon, this is talking about the Senate, and the top story reads, tired and resting in Senate. These are the names of some members of the Senate. And if you know you're curious, you could check the pages of The Guardian Post Cameroon. The story says, Yaoundé in Jamena diplomatic row, Biya dispatches envoy Ngongo to Chad. And away from that, the story says, World Malaria Day, ISCF supports evidence for streamlining seasonal malaria chemo prevention implementation. For more of that story, you could check the pages of The Guardian Post Cameroon. Crossing away from The Guardian Post Cameroon, let's go briefly to the Ghanaian Times. Let's see the stories that are making the rounds on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Now, on the Ghanaian Times, the story says, mass SIM registration exercise ongoing in Ghana, and it says NCA to block 11 million SIMs at the end of May 2023, thinking this happened in only Nigeria, but apparently Ghana is also experiencing the same thing. Now, the story reads, VIP woos Austrian investors to Ghana, and President nominates Justice Mrs. Tokono as new Chief Justice. Now, talking about the atmosphere, it says Green Ghana Day targets planting 10 million trees nationwide. Trees should really be planted by African countries because trees help keep the environment fresh. Now, crossing away from the Ghanaian Times, let's see the stories that are making the rounds on the front page of the Daily Guide Ghana. Now, we're still talking about the appointment of the new Chief Justice, and it says Nana Akufo-Addo names new Chief Justice. And this story says 3 Takwa gold robbers busted on the front page of the Daily Guide Ghana. Now, moving away from the Daily Guide Ghana, let's move to the last dailies I'll be taking from today, which is my favorite newspaper always, the pages of the Citizen Tanzania. Now, what are the stories that are trending on the Citizen Tanzania? The story says, Revealed women CEOs driving growth in Africa. And it says in a powerful display of women's leadership and business acumen, Africa.com has revealed a list of 93 trailblazing women CEOs, managers, and company presidents from 17 African countries. Now, this story reads, okay, let's zoom up a bit. Now, the story says Benjamin Mpapa Hospital set to begin providing telemedicine service. And the story says EAC considers integration of all education levels across the region. And our dear viewers, this is where we conclude today's edition of African Newspaper Review and also the 1 p.m. news with Hazel Ogoigwe. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day.